Hi, little sprouts. This is a book called If You Were a Kid at the First Thanksgiving, and it gives us a glimpse into the life of a Pilgrim child and a Native American Indian child during the time of the first Thanksgiving. Let's see what their life might have been like. A different way of life. In 1620, a group of settlers sailed from England to America to find a better life. They sailed on a ship called the Mayflower and made their home in what would become Plymouth, Massachusetts. At the time, the area was also home to a group of Native Americans known as the Wampanoag. Imagine you were a kid during the first Thanksgiving, also known as the harvest celebration of 1621. Whether you were a Native American or an English settler, you would have spent much of your time growing or hunting for food. To celebrate the year's successful farming, you might have set aside several days to eat, play games, and give thanks for what you had. Turn the page to visit this amazing time in American history. You will also see that life today is a lot different than it was in the past. Meet Miles. Miles Alderton is an English settler who lived in Plymouth Colony with his parents. Miles is a friendly boy. He misses his life in England, where he lived before moving to America a year ago. There, he had lots of friends and lived in a big, bustling city. He treasures a handmade necklace, which he keeps to remember his favorite aunt, who died on the trip from England to America. Meet Aquina. Aquina is a Native American girl who lives in what is now known as Massachusetts. Aquina is very spirited. She loves nature and the outdoors. She wishes she could go on hunting trips with her two brothers and father. But in her family, girls are expected to stay behind to cook and grow food. It was a chilly evening in November when Miles sat down for dinner with his parents in their home in Plymouth Colony. "I have an important chore for you tomorrow," said Miles's father. "The colony needs your help." An important chore? Miles wondered what it could be. In a nearby village, Aquina was also eating a meal with her family. Her father talked about the hunt he and her brothers would go on the next day. Aquina sighed, wishing she could go too. Before going to sleep that night, Aquina stood outside and gave thanks for the day. She wondered about the new people living nearby. Were they dangerous? Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a bow and arrow left outside. She quickly hid them under her dress to keep for herself. Then she slipped inside to sleep. The next morning, Miles woke up early. His father was already awake. "It's time to gather firewood for the harvest feast," he said. "A feast?" Miles asked excitedly. "Yes, we have been living here for a year. It's time to celebrate and give thanks for all the food we have grown and eaten." Aquina woke up to hear her father and brothers leaving for the hunt. Feeling the bow and arrow beneath her blanket, she wondered if she should follow. Watching her mother sleep peacefully, she decided that she would never have such a good chance. She quickly grabbed supplies and snuck off into the woods behind her family. After working hard all morning gathering wood, Miles sat down on a tree stump to rest. Suddenly, he heard a loud snapping sound. He turned to see a girl slip and fall in the woods. He ran to her and offered his hand to help. "Hello," he said. Aquina shook her head. She did not speak English. "Miles," he said, pointing to his chest. "Aquina," the girl said, with a smile. In the distance, Aquina's brother and father watched Miles and Aquina. Was this boy trying to hurt her? Just then, they all heard shots being fired. Aquina was frightened by the noise. She grabbed her bow and arrow and ran deeper into the woods to her family. Miles sighed. He thought he had made a new friend, but now she was gone. He touched his aunt's necklace in his pocket. It always made him feel better. Later that evening, Aquina's father scolded her for following along. Then he explained the loud noises they had heard. It was simply the English firing guns as they hunted. They were planning a feast, and they had invited Aquina's family to join. The next day the feast began. Everyone gave thanks, played games, and ate delicious food. Miles was surprised to see that a group of people dressed like Aquina were also there. "We invited our neighbors," Miles' father told him. It was then he saw Aquina with her family. He ran over to her to say hi. Aquina looked at Miles with suspicion. Miles wondered how he could show her that he wanted to be friends. He pulled his aunt's necklace from his pocket and offered it to Aquina. Aquina put it on and smiled proudly. Later on, she took Miles' hand to show him a traditional game. They were both excited to have a new friend. This is showing the Mayflower's route from England over to the North America area. So friends, let's think about some differences here. When we're ready for a feast like Thanksgiving, where do we go to get our food? We go to the grocery store, don't we? Well, these people could not go to the grocery store because there were no grocery stores in the area. They had to hunt, farm, or scavenge for their food. That means they had to go collect it in the forest. And both the kids in both families were expected to help in some way. So kids did lots of chores. It wasn't just the mom's and dad's job to do the food collecting or cooking or other chores. The kids had to help too. Also, in this time, there were different languages being spoken. These kids did not speak the same language, so they had to learn how to make friends without being able to understand each other. Can you remember how Miles made friends? He gave Aquina his special necklace, and that showed her that he was friendly and wanting to be her friend. And do you remember what Aquina did in return? She took his hand and showed him how to play a game. And that was the beginning of Miles and Aquina's friendship.